Why are we insisting on the word happiness? Because we're thinking long-term here. We're thinking about a revolution in the way people think about the good life. A revolution in terms of the way people think and pursue life's ultimate currency. Happiness. Happiness studies as a field focuses on much more than positive psychology. In fact, it focuses on much more than psychology. It looks at what philosophers had to say about the good life, and it looks at theology and neuroscience and history and economics and film and literature. What we decided to do at the Happiness Studies Academy is salvage happiness. In other words, help people understand the true, the deep, the real meaning of a happy life. Precisely to talk about the fact that a happy life is about pleasure, and it's also about a sense of meaning and purpose in life. And it's about relationships and generosity and giving. And it's about intellectual well-being. It's about learning. And if we, through education, teach people that happiness is about pleasure, and happiness is about meaning, and it's about relationships, and it's about physical health, and it's about intellectual development. When people truly understand that all these elements make up the concept of happiness, then they will be more likely to pursue that, more likely to attain it, more likely to help others attain it, more likely to create a better world. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So good to see you here, and can't wait to share more about the Happiness Studies Academy, specifically about the Certificate in Happiness Studies with you. My name is Ben-Shahar. I'm the co-founder of the Happiness Studies Academy, and here is what today is going to look like. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about happiness studies as a field of exploration, as a field of both theoretical and practical interventions and understanding. And then I'm going to give a brief lecture about dealing with uncertainty, specifically about resilience. This should give you a taste of the kind of material that we cover in the certificate so that you can make a decision. Then I will call on Yuval, who's my partner, co-founder, and the president of the Happiness Studies Academy, show you a brief video where he explains the structure of the certificate program, and then we'll open it up for your questions. We will also have the privilege of hearing from a graduate of the certificate program a little bit later, but basically this is for you to ask questions, whether it's about the certificate program, whether it's about the master's or PhD program, if you're interested in, or any other question about happiness. So it doesn't have to be about the program, it can also be about what I just spoke about the topic. Okay. What is happiness? You know, there are so many definitions to happiness. In fact, probably as many definitions as there are human beings. And there is no right or wrong definition. However, there are helpful and unhelpful definitions. And the definition that we have found most helpful for happiness includes what we call the 5 SPIRE elements. The 5 SPIRE elements, the S of SPIRE, it's an acronym, stands for spiritual well-being. That's about finding a sense of meaning and purpose in life. That's about being present. Of course, you can experience spiritual well-being going to a house of worship, through religion. And it's also possible to find spiritual well-being at work that you find meaningful, or volunteering, or practicing mindfulness and being present. So this is spiritual well-being, a very important pillar of a happy life. The P of SPIRE, physical well-being, that's about nutrition. It's about exercise. It's about sleep, rest, recovery, It's about touch. So that's physical well-being. Mind-body connection, of course, an important part of happiness. Intellectual well-being, the I of Spire. That's about curiosity. That's about learning. That's about deep engagement, whether it's with text or whether with nature or a work of art. Intellectual well-being, part of happiness. The R of Spire, which I'll elaborate on briefly in my lecture in a few minutes, relational well-being. Number one predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. And finally, emotional well-being. Emotional well-being is, of course, a critical part of happiness, but it's not the whole of happiness. Meaning, very often people equate, either consciously, explicitly, or subconsciously, implicitly, equate between pleasure and happiness. So when they talk about, oh, I went to the beach, I was so happy, it's probably not happiness, it's more about pleasure. Or I'm having this ice cream, couldn't be happier. Well, if you had more of a sense of purpose, maybe you could. If you had cultivated relationships, that contributes to happiness. Pleasure is not happiness. Moreover, we can still experience a happy life while experiencing emotional discomfort, sadness. One of the things I guarantee very few things to people joining our programs, but one thing I do guarantee is that by the end of the program, whether you're doing a certificate program, which is a year long, a master's program, which is 2 years long, or a PhD, which is 4 years long, one thing I guarantee is that after the program, no matter how long, no matter how good a student you are, you will still experience sadness at times, and you'll still get angry once in a while, and you'll still experience frustration and anxiety. All these things you will still experience, I promise you. Why? Because they're part and parcel of every human life. And we're not going to take away your humanity. We wouldn't do it even if we could, but we can't. And part of being human means also experiencing painful emotions. The question, though, is how do we deal with these painful emotions? And this is where we get to resilience. The great psychologist, 20th century psychologist Nathaniel Branden, talked about resilience being about our psychological immune system. You have a strong immune system, it doesn't mean you don't get sick. It means you get sick less often, and when you do get sick, you recover more promptly. So this program, what it does do is it strengthens your psychological immune system. In other words, it will help you better deal with painful emotions when they arise, and they will arise less often because you have a strong psychological immune system. But to eliminate painful emotions, unrealistic, impossible, I don't think desirable. So these are the 5 Spire elements: spiritual well-being, physical well-being, intellectual, relational, and emotional. Together, they make up a happy life. Now, you don't have to excel at all of them all of the time, but you do have to take them into consideration, even if it's at different times, because it's very difficult, impossible, probably, to experience happiness while completely neglecting relationships, or to experience happiness while cultivating relationship but completely ignoring the spiritual element of your nature, or to be a couch potato, not worry at all about what you eat or how much you move, and still be happy. You need to take care of the 5 Spire elements. Again, you don't have to be a world champion in each one of them. And there are times when you can neglect one if you're emphasizing others more. But you need to take them into consideration as you think about your happiness and others. Okay, so this is just an overview of what is happiness. But now I want to get into the topic that we are today going to discuss. And that is resilience. Specifically, how can we cultivate, strengthen our psychological immune system in challenging times, times of uncertainty, like the times we are going through right now? I want to introduce you to what I have come to call Resilience 2.0. Now, why Resilience 2.0? Well, today, generally, to be considered cool, you need to have something 2.0. Mine is resilience. You can choose anything else. I picked resilience 2.0. But why is it important to talk about resilience 2.0? Because of an idea that was introduced by New York University professor Nassim Taleb. Nassim Taleb, a professor at NYU today, originally from Lebanon, introduces us to the idea of anti-fragility. Anti-fragility, the opposite of fragility, or what I've come to call resilience 2.0. Let me explain what anti-fragility means, what resilience 2.0 means, by starting with resilience 1.0. I mentioned earlier, it's like the psychological immune system. You go back even further, resilience is a term that comes from engineering. What does it mean? You have certain material, and that material, you put pressure on it. If it's resilient, when you let go of that pressure, it goes back to where it was before. So you have a piece of rubber, you squish it. If it's resilient, it goes back once you let go of that pressure and stress. A ball, you drop it. If it's resilient, it bounces back up to where it was before. That's why we talk about resilient individuals as bouncing back, bouncing back from hardship, from challenges, from difficulties. Bounce back to where it was before. So that's resilience 1.0. A lot of research on it. We talk about that research in all of our programs. Important. Now I want to take this a step further to resilience 2.0, or Nassim Taleb's anti-fragility. You take that material, you put pressure, stress on it. If it's resilient, as I said, it goes back to where it was before you put the pressure on. If it's anti-fragile resilience 2.0, after you let go of the pressure, it actually grows bigger, stronger, better than it was before. Or think about that ball. You drop it. Resilience 1.0, it bounces back up to where it was before. Resilience 2.0, it actually bounces higher than it was before. That's anti-fragility. The opposite of fragility, that's resilience 2.0, taking 1.0 a step further or higher. It turns out now that there are anti-fragile systems that we can find resilience 2.0 all around us and even within us. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. The first example is our muscles. You put stress in your muscles by going to the gym, for example. You lift weights and then more weights and then more weights. And after maybe a week or a month or 6 months, as a result of that stress, you actually grow stronger, bigger, healthier. We're an anti-fragile system, potentially, not just physically. Now, I bet you that most of you on this call have heard of the term PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. I studied it when I was in Introduction to Psychology. You read about it in the newspaper. People experience trauma as a result of it. They experience post-traumatic stress disorder, which means that for years, sometimes their entire life, they suffer, they struggle as a result of that trauma. In the US, talk of post-traumatic stress disorder started by and large after the Vietnam War, where many people came back from war and experienced it. In the United States, 9/11 was a traumatic experience. Many people are still struggling, reliving that experience. right now as we speak, whether it's in Ukraine, the Middle East, Central Africa, there are wars going on, inducing trauma and sometimes fragility, breaking down, post-traumatic stress disorder. But what far fewer people know is that trauma doesn't always lead to fragility, to breakdown. And here comes a concept that was introduced by two psychologists, Tedeschi and Calhoun, who talk about not PTSD, but rather PTG. Not post-traumatic stress disorder, but post-traumatic growth. And it turns out that the likelihood of experiencing PTG is twice as high as experiencing PTSD. So post-traumatic growth is twice as likely as post-traumatic stress disorder. In other words, anti-fragility, resilience 2.0, is twice as likely as fragility. If, and this is a very big if, first of all, we know about the possibility of PTG. In other words, just knowing that it's a possibility to grow from trauma makes it more likely to happen. Most people have never heard of PTG or anti-fragility, and certainly not resilience 2.0. Just knowing about this concept significantly increases the likelihood that we will experience it. Second, there are certain conditions that we can put in place that significantly increase the likelihood of post-traumatic growth, of resilience 2.0. Most people have no idea what these conditions are. What the Science of Happiness, one of its most important mandates, certainly during times of uncertainty, of challenge, like the times we're going through right now, one of the most important mandates of the field is to teach people, students. And when I say students, I mean 10-year-old kids and experienced adults, to teach people, students, about concepts like PTG, like anti-fragility, like resilience and resilience 2.0, and then not just to teach them about their existence and explain them as I did to you, but also to teach them what they can actually do, what conditions they can put in place that will significantly increase, not guarantee, but significantly increase the likelihood of these experiences. And what I want to do today, again, just in 10 minutes or so, is share with you some of the things that you can do or encourage others to do to cultivate resilience and resilience 2.0, anti-fragility. How do we cultivate? What are the conditions that we can put in place? What does the field of the science of happiness teach us? So first of all, if I had to put it in just very general terms, the answer is very simple. Introduce the SPIRE elements into your life. If you cultivate spiritual well-being, a sense of meaning and purpose, if you meditate, experience mindfulness, you will become more anti-fragile. Physical well-being very much applies, whether it's what you eat or whether or not you exercise. Intellectual well-being, relational and emotional well-being are important preconditions for the cultivation of anti-fragility, resilience 2.0, and resilience 1.0, of course. But I want to be a bit more specific now and talk about briefly talk about three things to keep in mind if you want to cultivate anti-fragility. The first one is welcome and embrace challenge, hardship, and difficulty. Why? Going back to the analogy I used earlier, you go to the gym. Imagine if you go to the gym and all the weights are on zero. Easy, no challenge. You're not going to grow stronger. You need the challenge in order to become more, for your muscles to become more resilient, not just physiologically. The exact same thing applies psychologically. So this has significant ramifications for raising children. One of the biggest mistakes that parents make is that they do all that they can to take away, to prevent their children from struggling. Why? Because they can. Try to solve problems for them. Maria Montessori said it best, don't do for the child what the child can do for her or himself. Let them struggle. To a point, you don't want them to break, you want them to become anti-fragile. But right now, too many parents are helping their children too much, making things too easy. And we need struggle in order to grow. So the first advice that I would give for cultivating resilience is embrace struggle. Now, just by changing our perception or by changing our child's perception of struggle from being something that is to be avoided at all cost to something that can actually help me grow, help you grow, that in and of itself can go a long way in helping to become more resilient. I'll give you another example. So this is one of my favorite stories. I don't know how many of you have heard of Biosphere 2. What is Biosphere 2? Well, again, let me begin with Biosphere 1. Biosphere 1 is Earth. Basically, what biosphere means is a closed, self-contained system. Closed, self-contained system that perpetuates itself. That's Earth. We don't need extra oxygen from outside. It doesn't come in. The atmosphere is, a locked system. And yet, to a degree, Earth has the capacity to renew itself. That's what rain is about. That's what, the trees, carbon dioxide, oxygen is about. The system renews itself. Now we're pushing it too much now with our neglect of the environment. But other than taking it to the extreme as we are doing now, Earth is able to sustain itself. It's a closed system, self-contained, self-perpetuating, survives beautifully on its own. That's Biosphere 1, Earth. Biosphere 2 is a huge structure that was built by scientists in the Arizona desert to simulate Earth, mini Earth of sorts. Specifically, water, it had water inside, and trees and plants, and food, and people who were put in there with certain content, material, and they wanted to see whether this biosphere, which was completely shut off from the world other than sunlight, no oxygen could come in or leave. They wanted to see if this could survive on its own as a self-contained system. How the trees would recycle the air, the water. Everything was built to be a self-contained, self-perpetuating system. Now, why did they do it? They said, well, this could be the beginning of space colonization, because you could take a Biosphere 3 or a Biosphere 7 and plant it on the moon. No oxygen there, but you don't need it because it's within your system. Or Mars, or further in the future. Now, the experiment Biosphere 2 failed. because every year they lost a little bit of oxygen, and a little bit over time is a lot. So the experiment itself failed, and they're still working on it, and maybe eventually we'll be able to do something like, biosphere, maybe biosphere 20 will be successful, and then we'll be able to colonize, inhabit the moon. Who knows? But there were many interesting things that they learned. For example, about people who lived in that closed environment. There were certain challenges, so psychologists had a field day learning about human nature. But they also learned other things. One of the interesting findings on biosphere was the following. They planted trees there. There was a lot of plantation because you need those trees in order to recycle carbon dioxide, oxygen, just like it does on Earth. But what they found is that they would plant trees, new trees. There were trees that were imported from Earth, of course, but they planted new trees, seeds, because they wanted them to grow. And they did grow because they watered them and there was sunlight coming in from the transparent roofs. And the tree grew, and it grew some more and some more. And then it got to a specific height and it broke. Literally broke, fell down. They planted more trees and they grew beautifully, flourished. And then they got to a certain same height. Boom, fell over, broke. They tried to change the amount of water that they got. They tried to change the fertilizer. Nothing worked. They got to the specific height and they broke. They did not understand why until they did. The reason why these trees did not grow above a certain height, the reason why they broke and they couldn't sustain vertical growth beyond a certain point, was because on Biosphere 2, unlike Biosphere 1, Earth, on Biosphere 2, there is no wind. Think about it. There is no wind. So what? Well, if there is no wind, these plants, when they grow, are not challenged because the wind challenges a plant. And when those plants were challenged, they grew stronger and they could sustain vertical growth. But if there is no wind, these plants are not challenged and they're weak. And they get to a certain height and they fall over. Just like with the muscles. You need to be challenged if you are to grow stronger. Just like with plants, just like with the human mind. You cannot become resilient without struggles. I wish there were shortcuts. There aren't. One of the areas, and I'm not going to go into this now, but I'm just in passing. One of the areas that requires a lot of resilience, as well as Resilience 2.0, is a long-term relationship. Why? Because a long-term relationship, again, whether it's marriage or not, requires two people who are different, because no two people are alike, to get together and to live together. And especially today when people are living longer, that's a real challenge. And hence we see what we see in terms of divorce rates or unsuccessful cohabitation. Why? Because partners in general do not understand the value, the importance of struggle, of reframing conflict. And it turns out, and this is the work by John Gottman and David Schnarch and others, it turns out that we learn to reframe conflict. First of all, our conflicts become less severe, and second, they help us grow. In the words of David Schnarch, the late relationship expert, you don't get ready for marriage. Marriage gets you ready for marriage. Why? Because you have to go through the actual struggles of the relationship in order to grow into a better partner. It's such like the gym. You can't prepare in theory for gym. You have to go through the gym, the gym work, the struggle. You can't prepare for marriage. Marriage prepares you for marriage. Same applies for parenting. Challenging. Parenting prepares you for parenting. And reframing, understanding that struggle is a part of growth makes you more likely to grow from it. So that's one, embrace struggle. Recognize the benefits of struggle, and you'll become more resilient. Two, I talked about the 5 SPIRE elements. The fourth element, relationships. Some of you may be familiar with the, by now, quite famous Harvard research, where for 75 years they followed Harvard grads, as well as people from the surrounding neighborhood around Harvard. 75 years they followed hundreds of people, one of the most extensive studies ever conducted. What they found was, after 75 years, on literally millions and millions of data points, whether it's brain scans that they got to later on in the study, not in the 1930s when it started, whether it's questionnaires, whether it's observations by psychologists and sociologists. What they found after 75 years, they found an answer to a question. What makes people happy? And there are many things that make people happy. The number one thing that they found from that study was relationships. The interesting thing is, it didn't matter which relationships, meaning for some of them, it was a romantic partner and, a 30-year or a 50-year marriage. For others, it was their best friends who they hung out with a lot. For others, it was colleagues at work where they felt really supported and appreciated. For others, it was extended family or the nuclear family, whatever. It was relationships, not any relationship, intimate, supportive relationships. Not perfect relationships, because that doesn't exist, but strong, supportive relationships. Number one predictor of happiness. It turns out that it's also the number one predictor of anti-fragility, of post-traumatic growth. Supportive relationships. That also explains why the happiest countries in the world are not the wealthiest countries in the world. It's not the United States, not even close. It's not Germany. It's not the UK or Singapore. What countries? Countries like Colombia, like Finland and Denmark, like Israel, like Australia. Why these countries? Some of these countries are or were war zones. And yet, in general, people are happier there than in the wealthiest and safest countries in the world. One reason: in those countries, every one of those countries in the top 10 of the happiest countries in the world, there is a real emphasis on relationships. And those relationships contribute to happiness and also contribute to anti-fragility, the ability to grow from hardship. One of the best ways to cultivate healthy relationships is very simple. Be kind. You know what the nice thing is about kindness? Is that beyond the fact that it strengthens your happiness and your anti-fragility, it's also contagious. We have mirror neurons in our brains. As their name suggests, they mirror other people's behavior. And they work extra hard or extra effectively when they see an act of kindness. Mirror neurons, when I see an act of kindness, I'm much more likely to act kindly subsequently, whether it's to the person committing the act of kindness or to the next stranger I meet on the street. So kindness, one of the ways to cultivate anti-fragility and, of course, a better world. The third finding in that study is that they also looked for what predicts health. And they found many things. One of the things is, of course, nutrition predicts health. Physical exercise, very important for health. But the number one predictor, once again, relationships. Which gets me to the third. Intervention, practice, technique, approach that can help you become more anti-fragile, resilient. And that is physical exercise. The mind-body connection. Research, initially in Holland, now replicated all over the world, shows that by Dijksterhuis, that's the name of the researcher. On the final exam, you'll have to spell his name. No, there are no final exams, don't worry. And what Dijksterhuis shows is the connection between physical toughness and mental toughness. Between physical toughness and mental toughness. In other words, when you go out for a jog or a walk, yeah, you're becoming physically tougher. And unbeknownst to us until recently, you're also cultivating stronger psychological immune system. Not just physical immune system, a stronger psychological immune system. Now, for us, and when I say us, I'm talking about one part of the world, mostly the West, that seems strange because we don't understand just how intimately connected mind and body are. Well, they are. So regular physical exercise contributes to physical well-being and to psychological well-being, to physical toughness and to mental toughness. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the things, at a very high level that we talk about. We talk about them in theory. I do talk about researchers and studies and experiments. But even more importantly, we apply it. So how can I take these ideas and apply to children in school, to my colleagues at work, to myself, to my relationship? How can I become more anti-fragile? How can my 7-year-old become more anti-fragile? How can I help my organization become an anti-fragile organization? Because when we talk about happiness, we talk about it on the micro level, the individual, the relationship, and the macro level, the group, the organization, the nation. All levels of analysis. So that's a little bit about resilience, about dealing with uncertainty and difficulty, and also Resilience 2.0, anti-fragility. What I'm going to do now, before we open it up for questions, I'm actually going to share a video with you. The video talks about the structure of the certificate in happiness studies. I'm, of course, happy to elaborate on it if anything is not clear. I'm also happy to talk about the master's or the PhD after, if that is of interest to you. And I'm very happy to answer questions around happiness, resilience, psychology in general. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the video with Yuval Kutz, who again is my co-founder and president of the Happiness Studies Academy.
Hello everyone. I'm so glad that you're here with us today, and I want to thank you for your interest in the Happiness Studies Academy and our incredible community. Our global network of students and graduates are eager to welcome each and every one of you. At the Happiness Studies Academy, HSA, we offer fully online programs, including the world's first accredited master's degree in happiness studies and even a PhD in human flourishing. But today, I'm going to talk about our flagship program, the Certificate in Happiness Studies. This program has become the cornerstone of our academy. It has brought together thousands of students from around the globe who've not only learned about happiness, but have formed friendships, started businesses, and truly embraced what we call the happiness revolution.
Yo soy la revolución de la felicidad en acción.
Yo soy la revolución de la felicidad en acción.
Yo soy la revolución de la felicidad en acción.
אני מהפכת האושר בפעולה.
Yo soy la revolución de la felicidad en acción.
मैं खुशी क्रांति का प्रतीक हूँ.
我是幸福革命践行者。
I am the happiness revolution in action.
Eu sou a revolução da felicidade em ação.
One of our students put it perfectly when she said, "Anywhere I go in the world, I always have a place to stay." This speaks to the deepest connections and sense of belonging that our community fosters. The certificate program is a year-long online journey that blends theory and practice. You will dive deep into our SPIRE model, covering spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being. You will explore research-based insights and practical techniques that you can apply in a personal, communal, or professional way. The course has a weekly structure with three main components. The first component is pre-recorded lectures. These are delivered by Dr. Ben-Shahar, who will guide you through the science and wisdom behind happiness. You will travel through different cultures and times, learning what the great thinkers of the world in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, arts, economics, and more have to say about living well. The second component is the weekly exercises and the educational content. We believe that happiness, like any other skill, requires practice. These exercises are designed to help you apply what you learn in a way that's meaningful and is transformative for you. The third component is the live sessions with Tal.
Hello, everyone, and welcome.
Every week we gather from all over the world for a 1.5 hour session with Tal. It's a time for sharing, learning, and connecting.
Wow, that's amazing.
We're also proud to offer this program in multiple languages: English, Chinese, French, Hebrew, Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and Vietnamese, so that it's accessible to as many people as possible.
HSA is not a certificate program. HSA is a community.
I signed up for the material, and the teacher, obviously world renowned and wonderful. What I didn't realize is that I was going to get a community that is so wonderful.
You also automatically become a member of our Alumni and Business Club, ABC. The ABC is a thriving network where you will receive mentorship, participate in specialized working groups, access business opportunities, join in-person events, and get access to the highlight of the year, our biannual in-person retreats in different locations around the world, where we learn, grow, dance, and get to know each other better. Most importantly, when you enroll, you get lifetime access to everything I just mentioned: the lectures, exercises, the most comprehensive bibliography on happiness available today, invitations to weekly live sessions with Tal, and more. Once you graduate, you will receive a certificate recognizing you as an HSA certified happiness trainer, so that you are ready to share what you've learned and help others on their own path to improving their overall well-being. Thank you once again for being here. I look forward to our journey together.
Okay, so this is a little bit about HSA. And what we'll do now, we'll open it up for your questions. And we'll follow a similar pattern to what we do during our live weekly webinar, where if you have a question, you raise your hand like this, and I will call on you and you can ask it. Or, I find it more challenging to multitask. I guess you could send it through the chat, but if possible, I would love to hear your voice. So just put your hand up if you have a question. And again, it could be about any of our programs. It could be about anything I spoke about or anything in the field of well-being that is on your mind. Our Thursday meetings always begin with a short, 15, 20-minute lecturette about a topic like resilience or a poem that I think is very insightful and I read, or a new study that just came out, or something from the news. Um, and and then we open it up for questions. So it can go anywhere in any direction, and we feel very comfortable with that. So if you have a question, put your hand up. I want to say a couple of things before we continue about what you just watched. Yuval emphasized, and our students emphasized, the idea of community. And one thing that I repeat to our students over and over again is the following. The amazing thing about the Happiness Studies Academy is not the content. Yeah, the content is great. There's no question about it, but that's easy. I mean, what can go wrong when you focus on the work of Marty Seligman, the father of positive psychology, or Sonia Lubomировsky, the leading researcher in the world on happiness, or the work of Lao Tzu or Helen Keller or Shakespeare or the Buddha. What can go wrong, when you bring that material? It's great, it's interesting, it's potentially life-changing. But that's not the incredible thing about the Happiness Studies Academy. The incredible thing about the Academy is the community. A, because the number one predictor of happiness is relationships, but B, because it's like-minded and like-hearted people from all over the world coming together and creating a safe environment, a supportive environment, learning together. So whether it's the community that's being formed every week through live webinars, or the in-person get-togethers of retreats. So as Yuval mentioned, twice a year we get together, different place. This time it's in Rio, in Brazil. And it's for all of our students and graduates. And we also open it up to the community to come and visit. So if you're on this call and you want to come to Rio for our retreat, experience firsthand what this community is about, by all means, join us, and you'll get the link in the chat. So what's unique about signing up for the certificate program, or the MA, or the PhD, or our yoga teacher training program, is that you become part of a community. Number one predictor of happiness, number one generator of resilience and resilience 2.0 anti-fragility, number one predictor of health. So this is a long way of saying I hope you join us. All right, now let's open it up for a question, and then I'll call on Sandy to share some of her experiences. But Mark, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tal. I really appreciated that. It was amazing. I can't recall where where I came across PTG. I don't know if it was from you, but I can't remember. But I also read anti-fragility, and that term, it just seemed there's some sort of negative connotation to it. So I was looking around for what else could I call it, because I teach mental health to third-year law students at the university here in Canada. And I came across a cognitive scientist, Dr. Paul Thagard, who coined the term prosilience or prosilient instead of resilient. And I
I
just want,
love it.
yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I've started to use that, and I was just wondering if you had heard of him or come across that term
No,
before.
I have not. I've heard of his name, but I've not read any of
Okay,
his work, and I've not heard of Brazilians. So thank you for
awesome.
introducing me to this idea. I will certainly read more about it.
Okay,
You
wonderful.
know, Mark, as you're as you're here, I just want one of the amazing things about the Thursday get-togethers or the retreats is that we share information, ideas,
Mhm.
and most of our, not most, but many of our students then go on and teach those ideas. One of the most common questions on Thursdays is, I'm teaching a program on resilience, or I'm teaching a program to, to managers on finding purpose. Any comments? And of course, I give my comments, but I think more importantly, they then get comments from others, and they meet with others after the seminar to help them after the webinar to help them create.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of
Uh,
mutual learning. I certainly am learning a lot every day.
Yeah, I found in taking on this teaching that I've learned more than anything. I think if you want to learn something really well, go try and teach it because it just puts the all that
Absolutely. Best way
instills
to
in
learn
you.
is
So
to
it's
teach.
amazing. And one other point I wanted to raise is that what came to mind when you're talking about facing adversity and only going through it is we're having a huge problem right now in the universities with accommodation, especially in competitive fields like law, medicine, and everyone's running to get a note to come up with some diagnosis that will
Mm,
allow them to get extra time. I've heard of one. It's up to nine. If an exam is allowed 1 hour, some students are having 9 hours in order to
mm,
complete it, and it's causing a huge problem. Universities are struggling with how to handle it, but um, I think that this gets at that point is that you have to build up that resilience. There's a balancing act in there, and I think if we look at it from a parent point of view, I don't know if we're doing the students any favors by giving them nine
yeah.
times the amount of time in order to complete exam. So anyways, it was one practical application again that came out of that for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. And it's there's a fine line
Yeah.
between, helping and hurting.
Hmm.
Let me give you an extreme example. So
Okay.
the psychologist Adler, who was a student of Freud from the beginning of the 20th century, talks about how spoiling a child is a form of abuse. So he really
Hmm.
took it to the extreme. Now, of course, the
Hmm.
intentions are very different from, and if abusive parent, no excuse. If you're spoiling a child, you think you are helping them because we were told, even by psychologists, make children feel like they are, worthy and everything that they do is incredible. And
Hmm.
that has actually backfired. Now, I'm not saying don't make children feel like they're valuable and incredible and amazing. And also help them face reality. And in reality, they'll make mistakes and there'll be consequences. In reality, there'll be certain things that they won't be able to attain. In reality, they will lose. This is why I'm a very big fan of sports and even competitive sports. Not because it matters if you become a champion or not. Actually, not relevant for happiness. What is relevant is that you learn how to lose, that you learn how to work hard, that you
Hmm.
learn how to put yourself on the line, that you learn to work in a team, that you learn respect for others and for yourself. These are the important lessons that are important for both happiness and ultimate success,
Yeah.
however you define it.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, one last
Thank
quick question. I'm sorry to monopolize, but do you get into in your program anything dealing with the subconscious and our programming and the impact that that has on our lives?
Yeah, just today, in which one today I teach my webinars. So I teach two MA webinars and one
Mhm.
PhD. I can't remember in which one, but I talked about how the words that we utter and the words that we hear
Yes.
affect affect how well or poorly we do, either is limiting or empowering
Hmm.
words, and that's a lot of it is in the subconscious. So yes, the answer is yes. We talk about neuroscience. We talk about, the
Wonderful.
subconscious, the conscious, always towards one goal. How can we help ourselves and others increase levels of happiness?
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Mark.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Yeah,
thank you for teaching the course you're teaching.
thank you.
I'm going to call on Margarita and then Sandy to share with us. Yes, Margarita.
Hello, how are you, Tal?
Hi. Nice to see you.
It feels like a miracle being in live with you. I heard about you in 2011 through a CD that somebody gave it to me. I don't know if you remember, you did a CD series about being human and the happiness. Somebody gave that to me. That was a long time ago. And I listened to the meditation. So I have been following the Aspire model for a while. Anything that you post free, I listen to it. So
Thank you. Thank you.
and I follow you. One of the questions that I have is that I have been using the Aspire model. I recently experienced a PTG experience, but what I struggle in the middle of the experience, because now we're at the end, what kind of tools you recommend to keep a person positive in the middle of the challenging experience?
Yeah. So, Margarita, I remember at the beginning when I started off, I said, one thing I guarantee all of our, students, graduates, is that they will still experience sadness and hardships and difficulties at the end. So eliminating difficulties and hardships, not possible. I experienced them. The difference, though, between my experience of them today and my experience of them 30 years ago or even 10 years ago, is that today I'm more embracing, more accepting. One of my teachers is the quite well-known conductor, Ben Zander, Ben, Ben Zander. Look him up afterwards. He's marvelous. And he teaches people how to play, whether it's the cello or the piano or playing in a quartet or in an orchestra. And one of his practices is that every time a musician, and he works with some top musicians, every time a musician makes a mistake, he says, "How fascinating." Not, "Oops, you made a mistake. Oh, that's terrible." How fascinating. In other words, reframing, changing the approach to failure or more generally to hardship. And this is what leads to the most growth. How do you reframe it from, "Oh no, I'm struggling now. How can I get rid of it?" to, "How fascinating. I'm struggling. What can I learn from it?" Now, I'm not saying that this will change and you'll enjoy whatever your difficult experience is that you're growing from. Meaning it won't change it in the sense that it will make it fun, but it will make it less painful and, as important, more beneficial. So today, my wife and I, we've been together since the age of 14, so over 40 years together. And we have a wonderful relationship, but like in every relationship, we also go through difficult times, hardships, challenges. The difference, though, is that today, while we don't enjoy, conflict, disagreement, both of us understand it's part of the package. It leads to growth every time. Where we had a conflict, it led to a deeper connection. That's just the nature of struggle. Remember a gym. Just the nature of struggle. And when you're able to really see this and embrace and accept it, what a difference that can make to your overall experience of life. So as much as you're growing now, and again, we all potentially grow from hardship, we can grow even more if we become more accepting of that challenge. It's a term that I repeat over and over again, and I think you probably heard it in 2011 on the CD. I talk about the permission to be human, whether it's in the context of the relationship or in the context of your work or as a parent or as a friend, wherever. The permission to be human, to embrace, to accept, to recognize the value of struggle.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Marguerite. Sandy, hello. So good to see you.
Hi, Tal. Thank you so much. Well, I'm here to share with the people who are listening to you my experience being a graduate from HSA. And first of all, I have to tell everyone that as many people who are here, I had been following you for 10 years before I joined HSA. And what it gave me, other than obviously learning from you firsthand, was all the data and the research-based and evidence-based science that I needed to do a better work. I was already working as a trainer in companies for companies and doing human development and organizational development work, but the course really gave me the fundamentals that I was lacking, like the core structure of the theory that I was lacking. And that was very, very important. But also, and the thing is, the course went far and beyond what I was expecting, is that I got to use those tools also in my personal life, and it had a great impact. And also, you were talking about the community, and Yuval also in the video is talking about the community. And that was something that I really wasn't expecting. And it has completely changed my life. So I keep now working for companies and organizations as a speaker and as a lecturer with topics about resilience, anti-fragile teams, leadership, open heart leadership is how I call it. But also I work for the community of HSA. And that has been one of the most rewarding things I got from being here, learning about people from all over the world who have similar interests, who are in the same journey in different times or pieces of the journey, but we are, as you say, fellow journeyers. And getting to know people personally in the retreats, getting to organize these retreats, it has been for me a life-changing experience, so satisfactory, so enriching, and building so much friendships and creating this network of change makers that, I mean, we all really want to learn about this because we want to make our world better, our lives better, but also we want to make a better world. And finding this group was for me life-changing. So I just want to encourage everyone who's thinking or doubting if this is for you. I really think you're going to find more than you were expecting.
Thank you, Sandy, for sharing. And we get together, as I said, every week online, and then at retreats, and on retreats, and you'll see a video at the end. That's how I'll end today. You'll see a video of what the retreats actually look like, and they are, for me, and I think for many people, the highlight of the year. Because as Sandy mentioned, you get to hang out with people who care about making the world a better place, who care about their well-being, who are kind, who are generous, and you have, deep, intimate conversations, whether it's about family or work, yourself, others, and you shed tears of pain and tears of joy, and we laugh together and we dance together. I must add, Sandy is an incredible dancer. And we do yoga together, and we journal, and we hear, lectures, and we learn from one another. So, thank you, Sandy, for
Thank you so
sharing.
much.
Once again, if you have questions, please put your hand up, and I will call on you. I'm going to call on Victoria.
Thank you very much. I've heard about your work for many years, and I'm very interested in following up. I am wondering about the possibility of scholarship programs in your various degree programs or certificate program, because I am in the arts and have really been struggling ever since the pandemic. It's been a hard, the shutdown was very difficult. And by the way, say hello to Ben Zander. I'm a Harvard alumna, so he's a larger than life figure in the Boston
He
community.
really is. He really is.
So I'm just wondering what the possibilities are in that regard, or alternatively, I've always been a strong believer in the barter system. That what I've done for a number of causes that I really believe in and I want to be involved in the community is perform benefit concerts for their organizations or their causes, which because of the pandemic I've been able to do. I now can do them hybrid because over the pandemic, I built up a large following that was not local. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. I'm sure there are other people on this call who would also be interested in knowing what the possibilities are for scholarships. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Victoria.
I would love to know about scholarships as well. I've been studying positive psychology most of my since I would say 2016 when I started at a Jewish school. I had some more time. So I know your work extensively. I admire you and Dr. Seligman. I met at a positive psych conference. I started off as clinical psychologist, but now I'm more into positive psychology. I do believe, and I've had better success dealing with people when you focus on what's well with them rather than the illness or the diagnosis can drive anybody crazy. It drives my kids crazy and myself crazy. So I really appreciate the work that you do, and doing this happiness certificate, something that I've really wanted to do, but finances, like I would love to hear more about scholarships as well. I'm working with private practices. The pay is a little bit less right now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Is it Ruchi?
Ruchi.
Ruchi. Yeah. So thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Ruchi, for that question. So there's a simple answer here, and that is if you email us about this specifically or any other thing, info@happinessstudies.academy. We always respond. And the more information you can give us, personally, I'm also a big fan of the barter system. And I think we may be going in that direction now with the world changing the way it is. But that's, again, a topic for another webinar. So we'd love to hear from you, from both of you, or anyone else who has questions about this.
Do you have your personal email that we could have?
I see everything. So info@happinessstudies.academy. I will
info@happinessstudies.academy.
Yes. Yeah, here Sandy, I think, is writing it in the chat right now. So yes, email us and all the information you will get. I want to say a few, Ruchi, about you talked about being a clinical psychologist and then moving to positive psychology, and this is a question that I'm often asked. So what's the role of positive psychology or the science of happiness in the context of psychology in general? And I'm going to repeat something that I've said for the past, I don't know, when did I teach my first positive psychology class? 21 years ago. That I hope that in the not so distant future, there will be no positive psychology. Why? because I hope that it will just become part of psychology. Just like, people study, social psychology as part of every psychology degree, and every psychology student, whether when I was a psychology student or today studies psychopathology, every student will study positive psychology, that it will become an integral part of the field. Why? Because clinical psychology matters a lot. As a positive psychologist, I'm not a clinical psychologist. If someone has clinical depression, I don't even try to treat them. I recommend a therapist, I recommend a psychiatrist, someone who can help them. Having said that, I do hope that all psychiatrists and all therapists will have a strong understanding of positive psychology, because many of these interventions that we talk about in our program can be eminently helpful for the work of a therapist, for the work of a psychiatrist, for the work of a teacher or a manager or a parent or a lawyer. In other words, it can improve, augment the work in any field when you introduce these science-based, evidence-based interventions. So clinical psychologists, amazing. Add to it positive psychological interventions. You are a manager of an organization, you did your MBA, you know what an Excel sheet is, and you understand the ins and outs of great management. Amazing. Add to it the science of happiness, you will become an even better manager. Medical doctor, I sure hope that you went through medical school and studied, cell biology and organic chemistry and pathology. Add to that the science of happiness, you will become a better doctor. Remember the mind-body connection. So in every area, and again, I'm not talking out of a belief. This is not a detached assumption. There's research on it in all those areas. You add the science of well-being to the mix, and results, performance goes up. So thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Ruchi. Sophia. Sophia, if you can unmute yourself, great.
Of course, thank you so much, Tal. Hello, everyone. I hope you all understand. I can't be on video. It's past midnight in Nairobi. Not unless anyone wants to see me in my PJs, but yeah. It's so beautiful to be here and lovely knowing you all. I always say happiness is in this present moment. I have been with HSA for the past 1 year, and you can already tell I am not even happier. I am happiest. That is the effect that you get from the community, because we are one. Think of studying philosophy, but in a fun way, like with a beautiful community where you get to grow. And the best part is actually having the ongoing, like, perpetuity relationship, because after you're done, and even while you're in the course, you get to be part of the alumni and business club, which is a club of HSA, and you break it down to so many communities, like where you talk about books, you have discussion on different conversations, something happening in your life. There is community building every month. There's a week of that where you all come together and even become vulnerable, where you're not even recording the session. So this is a family you're getting to be a part of. Need I say more? So welcome all. Happy to be with you. You're always in the right space. The reason you're on this webinar today is because you saw a sign somewhere, and the universe is never wrong. Everything is connected for the best version of yourself to thrive. Yay! In Kenya, we
Thank you,
say
Sophia.
karibu. So karibu sana. Karibu is welcome.
Thank you, Sophia. One of the one of my dreams, and Sophia knows this, and we have other students from Kenya, Nairobi in particular, is to have a retreat there. So hopefully very soon we will be welcomed, Kariba, in Nairobi. Thank you, Sophia. By the way, we have students from over 100 countries. So as Yuval mentioned, or one of our students mentioned, wherever I go in the world, I feel like I have a home. And many of our students have been traveling a great deal, finding homes in different continents and countries. Okay, so this is it for today. I'm going to end, as I mentioned, with a video of our retreat experience. If you can join us in Rio, that would be wonderful. If you can join us and participate in the certificate in happiness studies, which starts in a few days. That would be wonderful. And if you're looking at other programs like the master's program, which starts in January, that's great too. Or the yoga, which will start in January as well. So there are many options. The menu is not an insignificant one. And I hope you find something that is delicious, tasty for you. Wonderful to see you here all. And take good care of yourselves and others. Bye-bye.
To me, the word that comes to mind the most is connection.
Knowing very authentic and generous people from all over the world, for me, it was life-changing.
Get in here and you know you've got fantastic support in every which way possible.
Didn't expect such a level of preparation, and it is just mind-blowing. You know, they're treating us like princesses and princes, or like I'm coming for the best date of my life.
People hug each other, they smile to each other, they support each other, which is amazing because this is not something you can learn. Such a passion towards other people can only come if you have the happiness in your heart and that you care for other people. And the HSI community is the community of people who care for others.